Okay, so what if a single massive shift in the Earth's climate could bring two powerful, totally separate empires to their knees at the exact same time? Sounds like something out of a movie, right? Well, we're about to dive into one of history's most chilling coincidences.
So let's start with something a little spooky, an ancient Norse prophecy. It describes Ragnarok, the end of the world. And what's absolutely fascinating is that for people living back in the 14th century, this stopped being just a myth. It started to feel like it was actually happening.
And this is where we get to the core of this incredible mystery. You've got the Norse way up in Greenland, literally fighting off the ice. And then, an entire ocean away, you have the Khmer in Cambodia, dealing with these insane cycles of drought and flood. I mean, completely different problems, thousands of miles apart, and yet their empires just crumble in almost perfect sync. So how on earth is that even possible? All right, to really get a handle on how they fell, we have to see how high they climbed first. Because before the big chill, there was this long, incredible golden summer. This period, we're talking roughly 900 to 1300 AD. It's called the medieval warm period. And you can think of it as a kind of climatic sweet spot for the whole planet. The weather was just right, and it let these societies pull off some pretty amazing things. Let's take a look. So up in the North Atlantic, warmer temperatures meant less sea ice. It was like a door just swung open, allowing the Norse to sail all the way to Greenland. And they didn't just survive there, they thrived. We're talking a full-on European-style society with cattle grazing in lush green fjords and, crucially, a solid trade link back to the mainland. At the same time, way over in the jungles of Cambodia, the Khmer Empire was becoming a master of water. The monsoon rains were super predictable, and they used that to their advantage. They built what's now called a hydraulic city, this absolutely massive engineered network of canals and reservoirs. It let them harvest rice 3, even 4 times a year and supported a city of over 1 million people. Just think about that. But here's the thing, the one crucial detail. Both of these amazing civilizations, they were built on a single massive assumption that the climate was stable. They got rich, they got powerful, all based on this idea that the world they knew would just keep on going. It was their blind spot, and it was about to cost them everything. Then, right around the year 1300, the party was over. Everything changed. The golden summer ended, and a new, much colder age began to dawn across the entire globe. Yeah, global temperatures didn't just dip, they plummeted. It was a sharp, dramatic drop that kicked off what we now call the Little Ice Age. And for our two empires, the fallout wasn't gradual, it was immediate, and it was absolutely catastrophic. For the Norse in Greenland, the threat was something they could literally see and touch. The sea ice came back with a vengeance. It just crept in, choking the fjords, sealing off the shipping lanes to Europe. Just like that, they were trapped, cut off from the rest of their world. Now, for the Khmer, the problem was a bit trickier. The global chill didn't bring ice, obviously. What it did was mess with the monsoon winds that their entire civilization depended on. It threw everything into chaos, creating this pattern of wild extremes. We call it monsoon whiplash. And the first punch that whiplash threw was thirst, a brutal one. We can see it in tree rings from the area, a catastrophic 25-year drought. Those massive reservoirs, the very lifeblood of their city, they started to dry up and turn into nothing more than giant pits of mud. Okay, so what happens next is where things get really fascinating. Both of these cultures tried to engineer their way out of the problem. You'd think that's the smart move, right? But ironically, their greatest strength, their infrastructure, became their biggest weakness. They walked right into what you could call an infrastructure trap. With the Khmer, it was just this brutal, cascading failure. First, the drought breaks their main water system. So, in desperation, they dig these emergency canals to try and fix it. But then, and this is the whiplash part, the climate flips and they get hit with years of insane torrential floods. Those new, fragile canals, they couldn't handle it. The whole system was just smashed to pieces. The trap for the Norse was different. It wasn't a sudden smash. It was a slow, grinding isolation. The winters got longer and longer, killing off their livestock. That relentless sea ice cut them off from Europe for good, which meant no more iron. Can you imagine the desperation of watching your essential tools, your axes and knives, just wear down to useless little stubs? And the final grim proof we have from archaeologists? They started butchering their own hunting dogs just to have something to eat. So how does it all end? There wasn't a big final battle or a huge explosion. It was more like an eerie silence as two corners of the world just sort of went dark. From Greenland, the end is just nothing. The very last written record we have is a notice about a wedding that took place in the year 1408. After that, total silence. The historical record just stops. The people are gone. And in Cambodia, by the middle of the 15th century, the great city of Angkor was a ghost town. The jungle was just swallowing it whole. The people had simply walked away, leaving their magnificent temples and clogged canals for nature to reclaim. And that's the final, perfect mirrored tragedy, isn't it? One civilization buried by ice, the other swallowed by the jungle. Totally different places, totally different forces of nature, but the exact same final outcome. And what all the modern research tells us now is maybe the most mind-blowing part of this whole story. These weren't two separate, unlucky events. No, this was the same tragedy, driven by the same global climate shift, just playing out in two different theaters on opposite sides of the world. Which, brings us right back to where we started. That spooky old Norse prophecy, the Wolf Age, when the sun turns black and the weather becomes treacherous. Turns out, it wasn't just some dusty old myth. For both the Norse and the Khmer, it was a terrifyingly real description of what was happening to their world.
Look, the story of this great chill is a really powerful reminder of something simple. We build our world for the climate we know. The Norse and the Khmer, they just learned way too late how fragile that foundation really is. And our world, right now, is built on that exact same assumption of stability. So it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? When our climate changes, are we gonna be any better at adapting?